Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be customizing this Matchbox VW delivery van. These were first released in 2000, so not a super old model but still kind of old. The boys who were playing with this as children are men now. And also in this episode, I've asked my mate Kiki from Alvarez's Diecast Customs to design me some cool custom decals to go on the side of my van. So I'll be able to see what he came up with. So let's just get our little VW off of the turntable and have a closer look at it. Not in the worst condition in the world, just a bit worn. The tampos there seem to have worn off more than the paint. Now I thought this was a good model to do a cool custom decal for because it's got those big plain sides and there's a lot of real estate. This particular paint job with the automotive parts on it was from 2006. So let's crack on and take the van apart. It's got one post holding it together and some tabs on the back. There's another post holding the windscreen in. There we go, now that it's all taken apart, I can take the casting and strip the paint off it. Just use some poly stripper to do this. Here it is with all the paint removed. Now I'm just going to give it a clean up with a wire brush on my rotary tool. There we go, that's looking a lot cleaner and shinier, ready for painting. So I'll start out by giving it an undercoat of white primer. Next I mixed up a nice tan cream colour and painted the whole van in that. I want nice light colours for the decal design to stand out on. So next I mask off the top of the van. And then this was painted white. I'll just remove the masking here. That's come out fairly nice and clean. I won't have to be touching that up at all. So now we can unveil our cool decal designs from Alvarez's Diecast Customs. He's got a really cool Diecast custom channel. He does a lot of Hot Wheels customs and some cool Gasland sort of Mad Max builds as well. So I recommend checking that out. I'll leave a link in the description down below. And he's also got links there to some of his art outside of YouTube, which is really great, which is why I actually asked him to design these decals for me. So he's designed a cool decal based on my Ford Model T rat rod that I made a while back. I've printed them out on some Testors decal paper and sealed them with some decal bonder spray. And now I'm going to apply them to the van. There we go, those are looking great on there. At this point it's always advisable to have your cat check out your decal placement. And once he's given it the go ahead, I'm just going to apply a little bit of microsol here to some of the more textured areas. like those grills there and the door handle and the panel lines, and that'll just help the decal to adhere to them a little bit better. Once the decals were well dried, I sealed the body of the van with a nice gloss varnish. Now we can move on to the plastic parts. They're a little bit grubby, so I'll just start by giving them a wash in some hot soapy water. So here's our black interior here. Now I'm actually not going to do anything to this because you just can't see it. And the same with the windscreen. It's a little bit scuffed, but I'm just not really going to worry about it too much. And I'll just give it a nice dip and some self-shining floor polish. The base here I will give a nice paint job though. I'll begin with an undercoat of black. I then hit the rear and front bumpers with some chrome, and I'm just going to finish off the underneath of it here with some silver weathering powder. There we go, that's looking quite nice. Now I'll just fix it all with a satin varnish. And finally, these horrible old original wheels will be replaced with some nice new aftermarket green light ones. So here are all the parts of our little combi van, refurbished, repainted and ready to go back together. I begin by putting the wheels onto the base. The green light wheels are easy to install, they just press onto the axles. Now I'll assemble the body of the van. There's the windscreen. And the interior. And finally the base goes on, and I'll screw it in with a button head screw. So there's our custom combi van back together, but before we take a look at the finished article, we're going to make a cool diorama base to display it on. Now I thought it would be cool to make an old paint shop. I'm going to be making Alvarez's auto paint shop. So I'm just starting with a few pieces of foam here. I've got one for the base. I've got a couple for the front of the shop here. And another one for a wee brick wall. I'll start by cutting an entrance into the front of the paint shop. Now I'm going to use a blunt tool here to mark in some brickwork into my foam. First start by doing some thin straight lines with a ruler. So there's our horizontal lines done. Now I'm going to mark in the bricks. Just mark them in row by row there. And here they are once I've finished. They don't have to be too exact. You can pretty much put as much effort into getting them really straight or not as you want. I think they look quite cool, looking quite rough. Now I'm just going to put on the top piece here. I don't know if it's called a coping, or I'm just using my hot glue gun there to stick it on. Next I use a blunt pencil to mark in some stones up the top here. Now for the smaller brick wall, and I'm just going to use the same method to mark some bricks into it. There we go, there's all our bricks marked in. Now I'm just going to break out a few bricks here and there so it looks like it's crumbled a little bit. Now I'm going to stick my brick wall and the front of the shop together with some more hot glue. And I start out painting it with a coat of dark grey primer. And now I'm going to paint all of the bricks in a reddy brown. I'm just using a cheap burnt sienna acrylic here. Now I'm going to paint in some lighter and darker random bricks here and there. There we go. Now I'm going to add some mortar. I'm going to be using some joint compound to do this. So I just rub it all over my brickwork. Make sure I rub it into all the little lines there between the bricks. And then I'm going to rub off as much of it as I can, just using a paper towel here. So it does a really good job of filling all the mortar lines in, and it also lightens the colour of the bricks a little bit. It makes them look a lot better. Just using a wee tool here to remove it out of some of the holes where I don't want it. Now I'll paint the stones up the top. I'll start with a sort of a dirty cream colour here. This was then given a black wash. And it was finished with a dry brushing of white. There we go, those are looking quite cool. So next I went to Photoshop and designed myself a cool retro looking sign for Alvarez's Auto Paint Shop. I've also got some other old paint signs here and made a parking notice. And I've just printed all of these out on some standard A4 paper. So here's our auto shop sign cut out. Now I'm going to use some sandpaper to sand down the paper as thin as I can. Be careful not to rip the paper while you're sanding, and you want to sand it until you can pretty much see through it. I don't mind if I have a few little holes form in it, they're going to look good, but I don't really want any rips. So there we go, you can sort of see the printing showing through from the other side. I'm just going to keep going until it's really thin and there's a few bits missing here and there. Now I'm going to apply it to the wall. I start by brushing on a little bit of watered down PVA glue, and then I can put my sign here into position. And then I use some more of the watered down glue to really soften it up and work it into all of the bricks. I want it to really adhere to the shape of the wall so it looks like it's been painted on there. And I repeat this process with all the other signs. While those are drying, I can move on and make my roller door. So I've got some styrene corrugated panel here, and I've cut out my roller door to fit in the front of the shop. I gave it an undercoat of black, and then I've painted it in aluminium, and I glue it into place in the front of the shop. Next I weather it, just using a little bit of cotton here, and I'm using some rust paint, just dabbing it on here. And I do the same with a darker colour. And I'll just finish it with a few streaks using some black wash. Next I'll use some pastels to add a little bit more weathering. Now to move on and do the base, so I'll just use my walls there to mark out where they're going to be on the base, and now I'm going to use a pencil to draw in some cracks. I'm going to be making some chunks where the concrete's missing, and also just a few cracks here and there. And there we go, there's our base all carved out. Now I'm going to give it a coat of dark grey primer, and then I just lightly spray over the top with a lighter grey. You can see I've given it a sort of a speckly effect there by spraying from a bit of a distance back and not going too heavily. Next I'm going to add some dirt and gravel into my cracked out patches of concrete here. I'll start with some PVA glue. Next I sprinkle on a little bit of dried dirt. I'll just shake off the excess here. And next I add a little bit more glue. And then I add a few small stones. And then I fill around those with some finer sand. Next I'm going to saturate all this in some scenic cement. I'm also just going to spray a little bit on the concrete or tar seal or whatever it would be there, and I'll use that to stick on just a little bit more sand. Just sprinkle it here and there, especially around the edges where it would be up against the walls. Here it is once it's all dried. Now I'm going to use a little bit more hot glue to stick the walls onto it. The hot glue makes for a nice sturdy diorama. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of grass and weeds to it. Start by painting on some little patches of tacky glue. I apply some long dead coloured static grass flock. And then I apply some shorter 2mm winter grass blend. And here are some little wee weeds that I've made. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video about how I make these sort of things. And I'm going to use these tweezers here and a little bit of glue to glue them in here and there on my grass patches. I think the weeds will really add to the derelict old sort of parking lot look that I'm going for. And just for one final finishing touch, I'm going to apply a little bit of green weathering powder here up the top, just to look like a little bit of mold or algae or moss maybe. So there's our diorama all finished. Now we can go back to our VW and take a look at the finished van. But just before we do that, we'll take a moment to look back and be reminded of what we started with. Our worn out looking little combi van from 2006. Missing a lot of its tampos there, and just generally looking a little bit sorry for itself. But look at those nice big plain sides there. They're going to be great fun to customize, so let's see what we can do with it. And here it is, our finished custom Matchbox VW delivery van. Finished with unique custom decals from Alvarez's Diecast Customs. The old worn out paint job is long gone, and it's been replaced with a smart looking cream and white paint job. been detailed. It's had some nice new aftermarket wheels put on it, and of course it is looking awesome with those excellent custom decals. Thanks heaps, buddy, those came out awesome. Remember to go and check out Alvarez's Diecast custom channel once you've finished watching this video. Now there is one small flaw that I didn't even notice until I was editing the video. You might notice there's a crack in the front license plate there, so I'm not even sure when this happened. You can let me know what you think of the decals and the van in the comments down below. Do you think I did them justice with that paint scheme? And you can also let me know what you think of Alvarez's auto paint shop diorama. Hopefully it gives you some cool ideas of bases you could make for your own custom diecast cars. Before I go, I'd like to welcome any new subscribers and say a big thanks to everyone for the great comments and likes on my videos. I do read all of the comments, I really appreciate them. Extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who help to support the channel through Patreon. If you'd like to join them and help me keep making videos like this for you to watch, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. Thanks heaps for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to subscribe and click the bell, hit that like button, and share it with your friends.